Constituents. Next is Councillor Santos.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to speak on a very sensitive topic for me, and I'll try my best to remain calm and respectful. The matter before us, if the city should enter into another 3-year agreement between Winnipeg Police and School Board, is something where, if you asked me last year, I would have fully supported. In 2018, the mayor appointed me as council liaison for the Manitoba School Board. I actually met with the board members and we discussed the SROs and how successful this program was and how much more was needed. I'll admit, last year, I actually advocated to get the 19th SRO. I attended many inner-city school Christmas lunches in 2019 where I celebrated with the students and my SRO. At that time, I even discussed with my SRO how we needed much more of them, how we needed them to be a part of our community so that our students can look up to them as heroes and as idols, and have a police officer that the students can confide in if something were to go wrong at home or if that kid was being bullied by another student. It gives the school and the students a sense of belonging and a sense of protection. I remember when I was growing up, I wanted to be a police officer. Law and Order was one of my favorite TV shows back in the 90s. I've met many police officers who've been very supportive and even helped one of my friends deal with physical abuse in her relationship. So my dealings with the police officers when I was a teenager have been very positive. But we all know with this job as a city councillor, our personal opinions, our personal beliefs, our values, and lived life experience can change in a blink of an eye. We all know that working on this job, meeting with community leaders, we're always learning from them. And we must listen to our constituents and literally walk in their shoes. We should be listening to them, and we should be listening to our elders, our seniors and forefathers, because they have the experience. They are our knowledge keepers. When George Floyd was murdered by a police officer and the Black Lives Matter movement happened, together with the calls to defund the police, I watched as the United States of America unfolded and burn. I watched our very own city start to unfold and burn. I even attended the Black Lives Matter rally at the legislative ground and listened to their stories. I told myself that very day that I would do everything in my power to ensure that all Blacks, Indigenous, and persons of colors would be heard at this table, and try my best to think about them when I read and review city policies. So when there was an opportunity to effectively make change, I was accosted by the media and the Winnipeg police. My family was accosted by the media and the Winnipeg police. We all know there was an anonymous police source that leaked confidential information to the media about an ongoing investigation against my family. Confidential information about an elected official. An elected official that not only represents close to 60,000 Winnipeggers, but an elected official that represents every single colored woman and person in this city. Because all of us have had to deal with this in some form, in some way, in some shape, at some point in our lives. And I want to make it clear that what the police service did to me were not deeply hurtful or piercing to me, because I've had friends who've had run-ins with the law, because I lived most of my adult life in an over-policed community in the North End. And a police investigation is not new. I've encountered situations where my friends were arrested by the police and were confronted by police for just sitting in their car. This is not new, and that is the problem. This issue is not about one incident. It is a culture. It is a culture of lack of impunity, of acceptance of over-policing of Blacks, Indigenous, and persons of color communities. An entire structure of power that supports that. Improper policing is not new. And what we are seeing are incidences like these happening in a pattern. This is a pattern of an attitude towards BIPOC and systemic racism towards others. At last week's police board meeting, the chief of police simply didn't agree with the community's views. And that is where I can't let this go. I could not allow my family, I could not allow my kids that I go home to every day, I could not allow victims of police violence or worse to see that justification, to accept it and accept silence, which is a form of acceptance. I cannot allow that to stand, and that is why I rise to point out this SROs in the schools. The fact that the Winnipeg police can work with a sense of impunity, my respect for the police has been eroded. When you have a police service that can accost BIPOC with no accountability, my respect for the police has been eroded. When you have a chief of the police writing opinions to the Winnipeg Free Press to accost Winnipeggers with no accountability, my respect for the police has been eroded. In this very report today, there's a section that simply states the SRO program is implemented with the following objectives: strengthen relationships between the police and community, including the youth. At this time, with my lived life experience with the Winnipeg police, I am having a hard time believing the police and signing off on an agreement which allows them to continue to be in my schools. This statement is no longer relevant, and it needs a change, and a review must happen. I implore the Chief of Police and the Chair of the Winnipeg Police Board to do more due diligence and research on the SRO program. Madam Chair, I'm going to probably ask for an extension of 2 more minutes. I implore the Chief of Police and the Chair of the Winnipeg Police Board to reevaluate the SRO program. I implore the new Council Liaison of School Boards to ask the board members to update the June 2014 evaluation of the SRO program of the Winnipeg School Division. We heard from some of the SROs and Deputy Chief of Police just recently that they are willing to work with the community groups on whether the program is necessary or how to improve this program.
Moves extension. All in favor?
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Carried.
Since the 2014 evaluation of the SRO program, in 6 years, a lot has happened. In the last 6 months, a lot has happened and changed. I really do believe there is an opportunity for the Chief of Police and the Chair of the Winnipeg Police Board to really listen to the community. They have already heard some of them at the Winnipeg Police Board just last week and today. The community spoke out about their lived life experiences, and the community wants to suspend the program until there is genuinely a community-led, equity-based review. And I completely agree with that. I'm deeply concerned that when we have headed down a path where we look at any kind of teenage acting out is worth being criminalized, it ends up looking as if our only response is more cops. More cops on the street, more cops at the airport, more cops in the schools, more private cops at malls and libraries. I think it's a case of if we think everything is a nail, then we only reach for a hammer. But what the Black Lives Matter movement has shown us is that everything isn't a nail, and a hammer can't be our only tool. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Councillor Santos. Councillor Gilroy.